The cabin hummed with the low drone of engines. But the air felt suffocating, charged with something far heavier than turbulence. Amara Jackson, a 38-year-old tech mogul, sat in first class, her laptop open to a spreadsheet detailing a $7.5 billion merger. Her tailored suit hugged her curves, a silent testament to her confidence. She was minutes away from finalizing the deal that would make her company, Horizon Innovations, a global leader in renewable energy. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard when a sharp voice cut through the hum. "Ma'am, we need to discuss your seating arrangement." The flight attendant, a woman with a tight blonde bun and a name tag reading Karen, said loudly. Heads turned. Amara looked up, her brow furrowing. "This is a first-class seat. And, well, given your plus-sized frame, we may need to relocate you for safety." Karen's tone dripped with condescension, her eyes scanning Amara's body with a smirk. The words hit like a slap. Amara's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. "Excuse me. My ticket says 2A. I'm exactly where I belong." The cabin fell silent, passengers craning their necks. Karen's smile tightened. "It's policy, ma'am. Larger passengers can pose a risk in emergencies." The word larger hung in the air. Deliberate. Weaponized. Amara's mind raced. She'd faced microaggressions before, whispers about her race, her size, her success, but this was brazen. She was a black woman who'd clawed her way to the top in a tech world dominated by white men. And now this. On a flight to seal her legacy. Her heart pounded, but her face remained a mask of calm. "I'm not moving," she said, her voice low but firm. "And I'd like to speak to your supervisor." Karen scoffed, crossing her arms. "I am the senior attendant. This is my call." The passengers murmured, some nodding in support of Karen, others shifting uncomfortably. A white man in a suit across the aisle muttered, "Just comply, lady. Don't make a scene." Amara's jaw clenched. She wasn't just fighting for her seat, she was fighting for her dignity. Her phone buzzed. A text from her CFO, "Deal's ready. Just need your sign-off." Amara's eyes flicked to her laptop, then back to Karen. The merger could wait a moment. This couldn't. "You're not just insulting me," she said, her voice rising just enough to carry. "You're humiliating me in front of everyone. And for what? My size. My skin." Karen's face reddened, but she doubled down. "It's not about race. It's about safety. Don't make this something it's not." Amara stood, her 5 feet 10 inches frame commanding the space. "Oh, it's exactly what it is." Her words were a spark, igniting whispers across the cabin. A young black woman in coach stood, filming with her phone. "Keep going, sis," she shouted. Karen's eyes darted nervously, but she held her ground. "Sit down, or I'll have you removed," she snapped. The tension was a living thing now, coiling around every passenger. Amara's mind flashed to her childhood in Detroit, to the time she'd been told she was too much, too loud, too big, too black. She'd built an empire proving them wrong, and she wasn't about to let this woman strip her down. But the clock was ticking. The merger needed her attention, and every second spent arguing was a second lost. She took a deep breath, her eyes locking onto Karen's. "You want to play this game?" she said, her voice now ablaze. "Fine. Let's see how your airline likes the headlines when I walk away from a $7.5 billion deal because of you." Gasps rippled through the cabin. Karen's smirk faltered, but she didn't back down. The battle lines were drawn, and Amara was ready to fight. Amara's words hung in the air like a thunderclap, and the cabin seemed to hold its breath. Karen's eyes widened, but she quickly regained her composure, her lips curling into a dismissive sneer. A deal? Really? You're making threats now, she said, her voice loud enough to ensure every passenger heard. This isn't about your business, ma'am. It's about airline policy. Her tone was patronizing, as if Amara were a child throwing a tantrum. Amara's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the rage simmering beneath her calm exterior. She'd spent years mastering the art of restraint, knowing that as a black woman in corporate America, one wrong move could unravel everything. But this wasn't a boardroom. This was personal. She leaned forward, her voice steady but laced with fire. You don't get to decide what this is about. You singled me out, humiliated me, and now you're pretending it's just policy. I know what this is. Everyone here does. The young woman in coach was still filming, her phone steady as she narrated softly. This is what they do to us. A few passengers nodded, while others looked away, uncomfortable with the truth laid bare. The man in the suit across the aisle rolled his eyes. Just sit down already, he muttered, loud enough for Amara to hear. She ignored him, her focus locked on Karen. Karen's face flushed deeper, but she wasn't backing down. You're disrupting this flight, she said, stepping closer. If you don't comply, I'll call security when we land. The threat was clear, but Amara didn't flinch. She'd faced worse than this boardroom battles. Smear campaigns, investors who doubted her because of her race and gender. This flight attendant was just another obstacle, albeit one with a cruel streak. Amara's phone buzzed again. Another text from her CFO. Investors are getting antsy. Where's the sign-off? She glanced at her laptop, the merger documents glaring back at her. The deal was her life's work, a chance to bring clean energy to millions, to prove that a black woman from Detroit could change the world. But right now, it felt like a distant priority. This fight was about more than a seat. It was about every time she'd been told she didn't belong. She straightened, her voice cutting through the tension. You think you can bully me into silence? I've built a company from nothing. I've faced men who make you look like an amateur. So go ahead. Call security. Let's see how your airline explains this to the press. The cabin erupted in murmurs, some passengers whispering in support, others shaking their heads. The young woman in coach yelled, "Tell her, Queen." Her video was already streaming to thousands online. Karen's confidence wavered, her eyes darting to the other flight attendants, who stood frozen, unsure how to intervene. One of them, a younger man with a kind face, stepped forward hesitantly. Karen, maybe we should, he started, but she cut him off with a sharp glare. I've got this, Tom, she snapped. Turning back to Amara, she said, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Just move to the back, and we can all move on. Amara laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Move to the back. You hear yourself, don't you? The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The phrase echoed a history of segregation, and the weight of it silenced the cabin again. Even the man in the suit shifted uncomfortably, his bravado fading. Amara's eyes burned with resolve. I'm not going anywhere. And if you push this, I'll make sure your airline feels the consequences. Her fingers hovered over her laptop. One email could halt the merger, a deal that involved partnerships with major airlines, including this one. She didn't want to play that card, it wasn't her style, but Karen's refusal to back down was pushing her to the edge. The young man, Tom, spoke again, softer this time. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Let's find a way to resolve this. His eyes pleaded for peace, but Amara wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. The plane hit a pocket of turbulence, and the cabin lurched. Passengers gasped, gripping their armrests. But Amara stood firm, her gaze never leaving Karen's. The fight was far from over, and the stakes were higher than anyone realized. The turbulence settled, but the tension in the cabin only grew. Amara's words had shifted the dynamic, and now every eye was on her and Karen, the air crackling with anticipation. Karen's face was a mask of defiance, but her hands twitched nervously at her sides. She wasn't used to being challenged like this, especially not by someone like Amara Sumion, who refused to shrink under her gaze. "Ma'am, you're causing a disturbance," Karen said, her voice louder now, as if volume could restore her authority. "This is your last warning." The threat was hollow, and Amara knew it. They were 30,000 feet in the air. Security wasn't coming anytime soon. But Karen's words were meant to intimidate, to remind Amara of her place. It wasn't working. Amara's phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with another urgent message. "Amara, we need you now. Investors are threatening to pull out." Her heart sank, but she pushed the thought aside. She couldn't let this moment slip away. This wasn't just about her, it was about every person who'd ever been humiliated for their body, their skin, their existence. She glanced at the young woman in coach, still filming, her face fierce with solidarity. Amara drew strength from her. "You're not scaring me," Amara said, her voice steady but laced with a quiet fury. "You picked the wrong person to mess with today." She turned to the passengers, her gaze sweeping the cabin. "How many of you have been told you don't belong? That you're too much, too big, too black, too anything?" A few hands went up hesitantly, then more. A Latino woman in coach nodded vigorously. An older black man in business class gave her a small, proud smile. Karen's eyes narrowed. "This isn't a rally. Sit down, or I'll report you for disorderly conduct." But her voice wavered, and Amara seized the moment. "Report me. Go ahead. I'll make sure the world knows exactly what happened here. My company's about to sign a $7.5 billion deal, and your airline's a key partner. One word from me, and that deal's gone." The cabin gasped again, the weight of her words sinking in. Karen laughed, but it was forced, brittle. "You're bluffing. You think you can threaten me with some fake business deal?" Amara didn't flinch. She opened her laptop, pulled up the merger contract, and turned the screen toward Karen. The logo of Horizon Innovations glowed, alongside the airline's branding. Karen's smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. The young flight attendant, Tom, stepped forward again, his voice gentle but firm. "Karen, let's take this to the galley. We don't need to escalate this." Karen shot him a venomous look, but didn't move. The passengers were fully invested now, some whispering encouragement to Amara, others glaring at Karen. The man in the suit across the aisle leaned forward, suddenly curious. "Is she serious about that deal?" He asked no one in particular. Amara's phone buzzed again, this time a call from her CFO. She ignored it, her focus razor sharp. "You don't get to decide my worth," she told Karen. "Not you. Not anyone. I've spent my life proving people like you wrong, and I'm not stopping now." The words resonated, and the young woman in coach shouted, "Preach." Her video was now trending on X, with thousands of comments pouring in, calling out the airline's discrimination. Karen's resolve cracked. She opened her mouth to respond, but the captain's voice came over the intercom, calm but authoritative. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some minor issues in the cabin. Please remain seated and calm while we address the situation." The message was diplomatic, but it felt like a lifeline for Karen. She seized it, turning to Amara with a forced smile. "We'll continue this when we land," she said, retreating toward the galley. Amara sat down, her heart still racing. She'd won this round, but the fight was far from over. Her laptop's screen glowed with the merger documents, a reminder of what was at stake. She could sign now and move on, or she could take this all the way. The choice was hers, and the world was watching. Amara's fingers hovered over her laptop, the merger documents staring back at her like a ticking clock. The cabin had settled into an uneasy quiet, but the weight of what had just happened lingered. Passengers stole glances at her, some with admiration, others with judgment. The young woman in coach had stopped filming but was now typing furiously on her phone, likely amplifying the story to the world. Amara's own phone was a battlefield of notifications, texts from her team, missed calls from her CFO, and now alerts from X, where the video was going viral. She opened X and saw the clip, her standing tall, Karen's smug face, the notebook with its bold yellow text, words cut deeper than knives. The caption read, "Airline shames black woman for her size. She's about to cancel a billion-dollar deal." Comments flooded in, some calling Amara a hero, others accusing her of overreacting. One post caught her eye. "This is why I don't fly that airline. They've been racist for years." Her stomach churned. This wasn't just about her anymore. Karen had retreated to the galley, but her absence didn't ease the tension. Tom, the younger flight attendant, approached cautiously, his eyes apologetic. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry about what happened," he said, keeping his voice low. "That wasn't right. Can I get you anything?" Amara studied him. He seemed genuine, caught in a situation he didn't create. "Just some water," she said, her tone softer but guarded. Tom nodded and hurried off. As she sipped the water he brought, Amara's mind raced. The merger was her dream, but so was justice. She'd built Horizon Innovations to empower communities like the one she grew up in, communities often dismissed, like she'd been today. Canceling the deal would hurt the airline, sure, but it could also jeopardize her company's future. Jobs, innovation, progress all at stake. Yet letting this slide felt like betraying herself. Her phone buzzed again. A new text from her CFO, Amara. "They're threatening to walk if we don't sign in the next hour." She closed her eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down. Then she heard a voice nearby. "You did good," the older black man in business class said, leaning across the aisle. "My daughter's watching that video right now. She's proud of you." His words hit her like a lifeline, grounding her. Amara reopened her laptop, but instead of the merger documents, she drafted an email to her board. "I need your support. The airline involved in our deal just humiliated me for my race and size. I'm considering pulling out." She hit send, her heart pounding. The response came almost instantly. "We're with you, Amara. Do what's right." Her board, a diverse group she'd handpicked, understood the stakes. They trusted her. The plane began its descent, and Karen reappeared, her face a mask of forced professionalism. She avoided Amara's gaze, focusing on pre-landing checks. But Amara wasn't done. She stood again, her voice clear and commanding. "Before we land, I want everyone to know something. This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's been made to feel less than human because of who they are. I'm not letting this go." The cabin erupted in applause, led by the young woman in coach. Even the man in the suit looked chastened, his earlier bravado gone. Karen's face paled, and she hurried to the front, disappearing behind the curtain. Tom gave Amara a small nod, a gesture of respect. As the plane touched down, Amara felt a shift inside her. She'd started this fight for herself, But now it was for everyone watching. Everyone who'd ever been told they were too much. Her phone lit up with another notification. A news outlet had picked up the story. The headline read, Tech CEO threatens to tank $7.5 deal after airline discrimination. The world was watching, and Amara was ready to make her next move. The plane taxied to the gate, but the energy in the cabin was anything but calm. Passengers were buzzing, some pulling out their phones to follow the unfolding story on X, others whispering about Amara's stand. The young woman in coach approached as people began to disembark, her eyes shining with admiration. "You're a legend," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Tasha. That video's got 1 million views already." Amara shook her hand, a small smile breaking through her tension. "Thank you, Tasha. Keep speaking up." As Amara gathered her things, her phone was a storm of notifications. Her team, the board, even investors were weighing in. One message stood out, a direct message from a major news outlet, MS. "Jackson, we'd like to interview you about the incident. Are you pulling the deal?" She didn't respond yet. She needed to think, to weigh the cost of her next move. Canceling a $7.5 billion deal wasn't just a power play, it could ripple through her company, her employees, her mission. Karen was nowhere to be seen as passengers filed out, but Tom lingered nearby, helping with bags. "I'm really sorry," he said again, his voice barely above a whisper. She's not usually like that." Amara raised an eyebrow. "Not usually. We're just not caught." Tom looked down, unable to answer. She didn't press him. He wasn't the enemy here. At the gate, 2 airline officials in crisp suits were waiting, their faces tight with forced smiles. "MS. Jackson, we'd like to speak with you privately," one said, a man with graying hair and a nervous tic. Amara's eyes narrowed. "Anything you have to say, you can say here." The officials exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for her resolve. Passengers slowed, watching the scene unfold. "We deeply regret any discomfort caused," the man said, his voice rehearsed. "We'd like to offer you a full refund and a voucher for future travel." Amara laughed, sharp and cold. "A voucher? You think a free flight fixes this? Your employee humiliated me in front of everyone, and you're offering me a coupon." The crowd murmured, some recording the exchange. Tasha was back, her phone out again, streaming live. The second official, a woman with a tight smile, stepped forward. "We're investigating the incident. MS. Jackson. We take these matters seriously." Amara crossed her arms. "Do you?" "Because your employee didn't just break policy, she broke trust. And I'm not sure your airline deserves to be part of my deal anymore." The officials paled, the weight of her words hitting home. The merger was a lifeline for their struggling airline, and they knew it. Her phone buzzed again, her CFO, now frantic. "Amara, we're losing them. Sign, or we're done." She stepped away from the officials, her mind racing. The deal was her legacy, but so was her dignity. She couldn't let Karen's actions slide, couldn't let the airline off with a slap on the wrist. But pulling the deal could cost her everything she'd built. She needed a third option, one that held the airline accountable without sacrificing her mission. Tasha approached again, her voice low. "People are rallying behind you online. There's a hashtag justice for Amara. You've got power here." Amara nodded, her resolve hardening. She turned back to the officials. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to fire that flight attendant, issue a public apology, and implement mandatory diversity training for every employee. Or I walk away from the deal, and I take this story to every news outlet in the country." The officials stammered, caught off guard by her demands. The crowd cheered, and Tasha's live stream captured it all. Amara felt the weight of the moment, the eyes of the world on her. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore, she was fighting for Tasha, for the older man in business class, for every person who'd been made to feel small. The airline had a choice to make, and so did she. The airport terminal was a hive of activity, but Amara stood like a rock in a storm, her ultimatum hanging heavy in the air. The airline officials exchanged panicked glances, their polished facades cracking under the pressure. The crowd around them grew, passengers and passers-by drawn to the drama, their phones out, capturing every word. Tasha's live stream was now trending globally, with Justice for Amara climbing to the top of X's charts. The male official, his name tag reading Mr. Reynolds, cleared his throat. Ms. Jackson, we understand your frustration, but these decisions take time. We can't just— Amara cut him off, her voice sharp. Time. You had time to let your employee humiliate me in front of a plane full of people. You don't get to stall now. The crowd murmured in agreement, and Reynolds' face reddened. The female official, Ms. Carter, tried a softer approach. We're committed to making this right. Ms. Jackson, let's discuss this in private. Away from— She gestured vaguely at the growing crowd. Amara didn't budge. No. This happened in public. We fix it in public. Her words were a challenge, and the crowd roared its approval. Tasha grinned, her phone still rolling. Amara's phone vibrated again, a call from her board chair. She answered, keeping her eyes on the officials. Amara, we're behind you, the chair said, her voice firm. If you want to pull the deal, we'll find another way. You're not alone. Amara's chest tightened with gratitude. Her board wasn't just a team, they were family, built on trust and shared vision. She hung up, her resolve steel. Reynolds stepped forward, his tone conciliatory. We'll suspend the flight attendant pending a full investigation. And we'll issue a statement. Is that acceptable? Amara shook her head. Suspension isn't enough. She needs to be fired, and you need to commit to systemic change. I'm not negotiating. The crowd cheered again, and Tasha shouted, That's right. Hold them accountable. Ms. Carter's smile faltered. Ms. Jackson, terminating an employee is a complex process. And the deal, it's critical for both our companies. Amara's eyes narrowed. Critical for you? You mean? My company will survive without you. Can your airline say the same? The threat landed like a bomb, and the officials froze. The merger was their lifeline, and Amara held the strings. Her phone buzzed with another notification. A news outlet had published a full article, complete with Tasha's video. The headline screamed, Tech Titan takes on airline over racist body-shaming incident. Comments poured in, some praising Amara's courage, others accusing her of playing the race card. She ignored the noise, focusing on the officials. You have 1 hour to meet my demands, or I walk. And I take the deal with me. Reynolds stammered, but Ms. Carter pulled him aside, whispering urgently. The crowd watched, breathless, as the officials huddled. Amara's heart raced, but her face remained calm, a mask of strength. She glanced at Tasha, who gave her a nod of solidarity. The young woman's video had given Amara a platform, amplifying her voice to millions. This wasn't just a fight in an airport, it was a movement. The officials returned, their faces grim. We'll need to consult with our board, Reynolds said. This is bigger than us. Amara nodded. Fine. But the clock's ticking. She turned to the crowd, her voice rising. Thank you for standing with me. This isn't just my fight, it's ours. The applause was deafening, and Tasha's stream captured every second. As the officials scurried away, Amara felt a surge of power. She was ready for whatever came next. The terminal buzzed with energy as Amara stood her ground. The crowd support a living force around her. Tasha's live stream was now a global phenomenon, with Justice for Amara trending worldwide. News crews had arrived, their cameras trained on Amara as she faced the airline officials. Her phone was a constant hum of notifications, her team, her board, even strangers offering support. But the weight of the moment pressed down. The merger, her legacy, hung in the balance. Reynolds and MS. Carter returned after a tense 20 minutes, their faces pale. MS. Jackson. Reynolds began, his voice strained. We've spoken with our board. The flight attendant, Karen, has been terminated, effective immediately. A cheer erupted from the crowd, but Amara held up a hand, silencing them. That's a start, she said. What about the rest? The apology. The training. MS. Carter nodded quickly. We're drafting a public statement now, and we'll implement mandatory diversity and inclusion training across all staff. Amara studied them, searching for sincerity. She'd heard promises like this before, corporate platitudes meant to appease, not change. But the crowd, the cameras, and Tasha's stream had shifted the power dynamic. The airline couldn't afford to play games. I want it in writing, Amara said. A signed commitment, delivered to my team by end of day. Reynolds nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. You'll have it. The crowd roared again, and Tasha shouted, That's how you do it. Amara allowed herself a small smile, but the victory felt incomplete. Her phone buzzed with another message from her CFO. Investors are holding, but we need your sign-off now. She stepped away from the officials, her mind racing. The deal was still alive, but signing it meant trusting an airline that had just shown its true colors. Could she do it? She opened X, scrolling through the flood of support. A post from a civil rights activist caught her eye. Amara Jackson is showing us what power looks like. Don't back down. Another from a young black girl. I want to be like her when I grow up. The words hit her hard, reminding her why she'd fought in the first place. This wasn't just about her, it was about the next generation, about dismantling systems that thrived on humiliation. Amara turned back to the officials. I'm giving you a chance, she said, her voice steady. But if you don't follow through, I'll pull the deal and make sure the world knows why. Reynolds nodded, his relief palpable. MS. Carter extended a hand, but Amara didn't take it. Trust would have to be earned. As the crowd began to disperse, Tasha approached, her eyes bright. You changed things today, she said. People are listening. Amara nodded, her throat tight. We changed things, she corrected. Tasha grinned, and they exchanged numbers, a bond forged in the heat of the moment. Amara headed to a quiet corner of the terminal, her laptop open. She opened the merger documents, her finger hovering over the sign button. The airline's logo stared back at her, a reminder of the fight she'd just won and the work still ahead. She took a deep breath and clicked sign. The deal was done, but it came with a promise. She'd hold the airline accountable, every step of the way. As she closed her laptop, a news alert popped up. Airline fires flight attendant. Commits to change after tech CEOs stand. Amara's heart swelled. The fight had been messy, painful, but it had sparked something bigger. She wasn't just a CEO anymore, she was a voice, a force, a symbol of what was possible when you refused to be silenced. Amara sat in the airport lounge, the weight of the day settling into her bones. The merger was signed, the airline's promises secured, but the victory felt bittersweet. Her phone was still buzzing messages of support, interview requests, even a note from her mother. "I'm so proud of you, baby. You showed them who you are." She smiled, her eyes stinging. She'd done more than save her company today. She'd reclaimed her power. The lounge's TV was tuned to a news channel, replaying Tasha's video. The anchor's voice was solemn. Amara Jackson, CEO of Horizon Innovations, took a stand against discrimination today, forcing a major airline to confront its practices. The screen showed the notebook with its bold yellow text, words cut deeper than knives. Commentators debated whether Amara's actions would spark real change or fade into another viral moment. She didn't care about their opinions. She cared about the results. Tasha's hashtag, Justice for Amara, had evolved into a broader movement. No more silence. People shared their own stories of discrimination in planes, in workplaces, in everyday life. Amara scrolled through X, her heart swelling at the outpouring. A young man wrote about being profiled at a store. A woman shared how she'd been passed over for promotions because of her race. Each story was a thread in a larger tapestry, one Amara had helped weave. Her CFO called, his voice lighter than before. "You did it, Amara. The deal's locked, and the investors are thrilled. You're a rock star." She laughed softly. "I had help." She thought of Tasha, the older man in business class, her board, even Tom, the flight attendant who'd tried to do right. This wasn't her victory alone. Later that evening, Amara received an email from the airline, a signed commitment to fire Karen, issue a public apology, and implement diversity training. The apology was already online, trending alongside Tasha's video. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Amara forwarded the email to her legal team with a note, "Hold them to it." She wasn't naive. Corporations often made promises they didn't keep. But she'd be watching, and so would the world. As she boarded her connecting flight, the crew greeted her with cautious respect. No one mentioned the incident, but their eyes said they knew. Amara took her seat in first class. Her laptop closed this time. She didn't need to prove herself here. She'd already done that. Tasha texted her a link to a new post, a photo of the two of them in the terminal. Amara's face fierce. Tasha's proud. The caption read, "We don't just sit down. We rise up. No more silence." Amara smiled, her chest tight with emotion. She'd started this day fighting for her dignity, but she'd ended it inspiring others to fight for theirs. The plane took off, and Amara looked out the window, the city lights fading below. She thought of her younger self, the girl from Detroit who dreamed big despite the world's doubts. That girl had carried her here, to this moment, where her voice could change lives. The fight wasn't over. There would be more Karens, more systems to dismantle, but Amara was ready. She'd shown the world what a black woman could do when she refused to be small. And she'd keep showing them, one battle at a time.